Welcome to How Preschool Teachers Do It.
This is Alison Kentos. I am an early childhood educator.
And this is Cindy Tarabush. I am an early childhood consultant.
This podcast is for parents and early childhood professionals.
Let our experience and research-based knowledge become your guide. Hello, preschool peeps.
Hi, peeps.
Many times on this podcast, I think, you've heard me talk about being a visual learner. I have said I am a visual learner.
Yeah, I think I've said that because I'm a hands-on learner. And I know that's about myself.
So you would be more of a kinesthetic learner.
A kinesthetic learner, yeah.
Okay, and today we're here to maybe take that back because we have learned and want to share with all of you that potentially learning styles, which would include visual learners, auditory learners, kinesthetic learners, is a myth.
Yeah, but
nothing.
I know.
Yeah, but nothing. Okay, we're sitting here looking at articles.
I know. It just seems so odd, right? Because you know that you're a visual learner. But you're not, is what you're saying. And I think, like, if I start thinking about times when I've been in different situations learning different things, that there are times that some of the things I'm learning can't be really hands-on. Maybe like when I'm at a lecture, that's more auditory, right? So, and I still learn things at the lecture, and there's other times where I look at things and I learn things that way. So I think it's trying to say we're capable of all the types of learning in different situations, right? Or different material.
It depends. So there's research that shows that people who work with early learners, early educators, people who work with young children tend to believe, because we were taught that it is a function of our brains that we are either a visual, auditory, or kinesthetic learner, that we are born with that, and that it's unchanging throughout a person's life. And so when we teach young children, we tend to say, well, that child, and I have said it, anyone who has worked with me knows I've said it, and I have to stop doing this now. So we'll say, well, if that child's more of a visual learner, here's what you need. Or if that child's a kinesthetic learner, here's what you need to do. And what the reality seems to be is kind of like what you were just saying, Alison, that it depends on the material and it depends on the task, that we learn different types of materials different ways, or different types of learning different ways. So I might be a visual learner for some subjects, for example, but actually I'm more of an auditory learner for others. And so there is no such thing as this, you are this learning style.
Yeah, and I think by saying I'm a visual learner, it puts you, or saying that even about the children, it puts you or them in this box.
Yes.
So now that child is labeled almost as this visual learner, and everything is being thrown at them visually, when some things they don't need that way. And then it's not really helping them become a more well-rounded learner. Is that what we're saying?
Not only is it not helping them become a more well-rounded learner, but the research shows that what we tend to do is say, this child is a visual learner, so this is how I'm going to approach this with this child. But the fact is, the child might have grasped the concept sooner with a different style. Because it's fluid. It's fluid. Yeah. We go in and out, maybe. And so as we were pondering this, Alison and I said, I have to find out, how did this myth start then? Because it's being taught still to people majoring in education. We are taught to things this way. We have curriculum written based on this. So what was the data that said these are the different types of learning styles? Yeah. And you know what we learned, folks? There's no data.
There is no data.
There's actually no data.
Whole entire teacher education programs that are telling future teachers this, and there is no data on it at all.
I'm going to refer to a couple of articles that I will put in the listener resources on our website. Okay, there's one article called Busting the Myth of Learning Styles, and this is the article that explains how this notion of learning styles started, which is absolutely mind-blowing, by the way. Yeah. basically it says, and if you're on YouTube, I'm looking down because I'm looking at the article on my, I'm looking down at the article on my iPad. In the early 1990s, someone named Neil Fleming wanted to know, he was a school inspector in New Zealand, and he wanted to know why he thought there were good teachers who were unable to reach every child, right? So I'm a good teacher, and yet there are students I'm not reaching. And he wanted to know, why does that happen? So he basically just came up with the idea of learning styles and developed a questionnaire called the VARK questionnaire to determine someone's learning style. He didn't coin the term learning style, it says. This is not his term. But his questionnaire became very, very popular because people thought that it would fix a problem. The problem being we're not reaching every child.
Right. And so...
Okay. But he had no data, no scientific proof.
No
nothing.
Longitudinal studies, no nothing. He
Nothing.
got nothing. It's a
nothing.
survey.
I think I'm gonna just quickly Google his name, but he basically just was sort of like, I think that this is the situation.
Yeah.
And so I'm gonna kind of come up with, let's see. He taught in universities. He must have recently passed away. It says 2022. So sorry.
It's recent.
Right, very recent. So he was an inspector. He's best known worldwide for the design of the VARK model, which expanded upon earlier neurolinguistic programming models. It was launched in 1987, apparently. He came up with the idea. It keeps saying he came up with the idea for this model. So listen, despite the popularity, again, I'm reading, sorry. Despite the popularity of learning styles and inventories, such as the VARK, there is no evidence to support the idea that matching activities to one's learning style improves learning. So then would it even matter? Sometimes children learn visually, sometimes they learn auditorily, sometimes they learn through movement, and it doesn't even matter. So the fact that we're still, myself included, very focused on this terminology, instead of saying, well, that didn't do it, maybe they'll learn this material through a different style or in a different way better.
Yeah.
So listen to this. Here's a quote. Psychological Science and the Public Interest commissioned cognitive psychologists. They commissioned 4 psychologists to evaluate the research on learning styles to determine if there's credible evidence. And they said, although the literature on learning styles is enormous, they found virtually no evidence supporting the idea that instruction is best provided in a format that matches the preferences of the learner. What on earth have we been doing, people?
What are we doing?
Oh, my peeps, what have we been doing?
What are we doing? And how did it get to this point that there's no evidence, and yet there are entire curriculum programs and teacher education programs based on this?
How did it get to this point?
And yet there is some research that they won't listen to. Okay,
they've rejected that stuff. So I think how it got to this point is what the article said that I said earlier, that we're always looking to fix the children. Fix the children. So if we can fix them, here's a way we can figure them out and fix them. But folks, it doesn't work. What all the research now is showing no, the children are not learning any better that way. So one of the things that I find interesting is that it's those of us who teach young children who most firmly hang on to the belief, according to research. Again, I have multiple articles in front of me that I will put on our website.
Yeah.
We are the ones who firmly hold on to that belief. So here, follow me down this rabbit hole. Ready?
Okay.
We're holding on to that belief. We believe this child is a visual learner. So we approach them with that in mind, mostly through visual methods of teaching.
Yeah.
the child might have actually learned the concept sooner, better, more deeply, or even just learned it if I had approached that child another way. But instead, I led the child down this path, which is kind of fruitless, making the child believe that this is an impossible task for them. Oh my, I'm having like a Cindy in math class flashback of some kind.
I feel like
the child believes that this is now a really hard task, but the truth is that we as adults were so focused on providing the information a certain way to this child that we sort of bungled it because we made the child feel like this is an impossible task, because really that child needed something with movement to learn those numbers or something. You following the rabbit hole?
I am following it. I'm also thinking like we bungled it, but we're not blaming ourselves for bungling it. We're now going to blame probably the child
yes.
who's not learning because, you know what I mean? And now there's another label slapped on. So like, but if you had just taught them.
Okay. Previous research has shown that the learning styles model can undermine education in many ways. Educators spend time and money tailoring lessons to certain learning styles for different students, even though all students would benefit from learning through various methods.
Yes, all of them. But not only do we do that, we're required to do that. We are like many administrators are like, no, you need, I don't see in your lesson plans where you're tailoring to this and that and that. And it's like, no, I'm just going to teach it.
So they're saying, no, they all would benefit. And it says that when we in early education put the child on that path, in order to learn, the message they get is, in order to learn, you need visuals, right? Yeah. So it says that what happens is, as the children get older, the student studies in ways that match their perceived learning style, even though it's not going to help them.
Yeah. So then they feel like they're failing, right?
Right. I think the question I have, I understand how we got into this, and I understand why people hang on to it, but I don't understand why so many people don't know that it's actually a myth. I'm looking at multiple articles in front of me on my iPad. Why is that not discussed? That there's, even in college classes, if we were to say this is a questionnaire, this is what it looks for, current studies and research into this have shown that there's really no evidence.
Yeah.
Instead, here's this. What do you all think? Couldn't this be something that we discuss with people?
It should be. But when I was in my teacher education program, it was the opposite. It was like, oh, you need to learn how to do this to cater to every single learning style. And we're going to teach you how to do that. But here we're in college level classes, graduate level classes. And how do the professors not sit there and say, no, this is what we're going to learn. What are your thoughts? Let's have a good, healthy debate about this and what we think. And then do it differently. But when you learn that in grad school or college classes, now I, as a teacher, believe that it's true.
Or anything. Or if you go try to get your CDA credential, or you do professional development where it's talked about.
And you're listening to these people, these teachers, these professional development people like you, Cindy, who are consultants, and you're thinking like, oh, well, she said it. She's the expert. It must be true, right?
Listen, I own it. You live and you learn, right?
And so this myth just keeps perpetuating.
Yeah.
And now I learned this, and now I'm going to teach the person whom I might be mentoring, right? And then it just keeps going on and on and on. We need to just stop it, though.
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
Here's a quote from someone named Nance Cavell. I'm sorry if you ever hear this podcast and I'm completely butchering your name. This person is a PhD researcher and visiting scholar at University of Michigan. Shailene Nance Cavell, PhD. And here's a quote. The quote says, "My biggest concern is that time is being spent teaching young children maladaptive strategies for learning, strategies that don't work for them, in other words. It is important that children from very young age are taught with the best practices so that they will succeed." And she says, it seems likely that the appeal of the learning styles myth rests on its fit with the way people like to think about behavior. People prefer brain-based accounts of behavior, and they like to categorize people into types. Learning styles allow people to do both of those things. To say it's the fault of the brain, not me, not my approach to the child. It's the child's brain. It's not anything I've done. And it allows me to put people in boxes, into categories.
I was just going to say, it makes it so that you could just label everything. Let me label this child, label this learner.
Yep.
Slap a label on it and move on. Oh, see, it wasn't me.
I
tried.
I like it. So, all right. So preschool peeps who've listened to this podcast over time know that we always try to land on where do we go from here? What are some recommendations? Yeah. I think what we have to do is stop using those phrases and slapping that label on people. Yeah. And I think that everything we teach then, everything has to be approached from multiple styles. Like, let's say you're doing a read aloud, for example.
Okay.
So you're going to have to learn about the plot of that book, because it shouldn't just be about children sitting and listening to you for 15 minutes. It should be children understanding characters' plot, the characters' reactions to a plot, and whatever lessons may be in that book. So we're going to have to do that book auditorily, visually, and through movement.
Yes.
I am reminded of something that I recently went to. I went to an early childhood graduation. Aww, and it was very cute. And as part of that graduation, the children acted out in a very preschool way. You could tell it was a very preschool way, acted out one of the children's books that they loved from during the year. Yeah. So would be the kinesthetic, right? So these children listened to the story, saw pictures and stuff from the story, had costumes, cute little simple costumes, and actually reenacted it through movement. And we're going to have to do that with most things. And I think it's easy to say that about a read aloud, but maybe not so easy to say that for math. So if it was math, right, there has to be a way that I teach counting through listening, through seeing, and through movement.
Yeah.
Right? So maybe there's, a song that matches that, what I'm trying to teach them about counting, that has movement, so that we can move also this many times, right? So let's say we're trying to get children to count to, 10, 20, depending on their age. We auditorily do it. We have them, we give them visuals at the same time as doing it auditorily for the children who that helps, and things that they can manipulate. And actually, best practice for math is also having numbers and items for them to feel, touch, take in through their senses. And then we have to all get up and do something where we are clapping 10 times, shaking our hands 10 times, stamping our feet 10 times. Because if we don't do all three, then potentially everybody struggles. Again, I feel like that was such a simple example. I don't know if you can think of one that's harder.
Well, I feel like with math, what I do is sometimes I don't do it all at once. I infuse it throughout the day. So if we're lining up and I want them to learn how to count to 10, okay, I almost use the kids as prompts, kind of thing, and line them up in this way, or we're going to line up according to a pattern of some way, and that kind of reinforces that. But I might not do it right at the same moment that I was teaching patterns. I'd be like, okay, an hour later, we're lining up, we're going outside, let's do it now. You know what I mean? And kind of just infuse those things throughout the whole day.
I really wonder if we should do it to introduce a new concept. Everybody think about this, preschool peeps. To introduce a new concept, do we do it all at once, and then we start to break it up like you're saying for extra practice?
Yeah.
Maybe that's the goal. How do I take this newer concept, do all 3 ways to teach it, or all 4 ways, whatever there is, however many ways you can think of, but definitely those 3 ways to teach it. Do that all at once as an introduction. Otherwise, I'm losing children who would benefit from one of those ways. Yeah. And then we go and say, all right, when we line up, we're going to do, remember we did that counting? When we line up,
it's almost like we're teaching them, like, this is how what we just learned can be applied in real life. You know what I mean? So you never get the whole, like, we're never going to use this in real life. No, you are, because we're going to use it right now. You know, so.
Again, flashbacks of me and math.
Yeah. So.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So the challenge for you all preschool peeps is, how do I do the same thing several ways simultaneously, so that all the children kind of catch it or can grasp onto it, and then reinforce it in multiple ways again, because we don't actually know what's catching who, and how do we not label the children this way, not have these labels in our heads, because they obviously don't matter. There's no data.
They don't matter.
They don't matter. I have to stop calling myself a visual learner. It's really been part of my identity. I don't know how you all feel. It's part of my identity as a learner.
No, because I say that to people. I'm like, I'm hands-on. I'll understand it more when I get doing it. It's usually what I say. But I think we just need to label ourselves as learners, and that's it. Because we are constantly always learning, no matter what we're doing.
That's true.
You know, so we're just learners.
All right.
Period.
So the next time on this podcast, anybody hears me say anything about visual, auditory, or kinesthetic learners, you are welcome to contact us and admonish me and tell me, no, you told us that was a myth.
That was a myth. But it's hard to get out of the habit of saying those things. So.
It really is. But I'll bet you the people in places who have been listening to us the most in the past 7 days will grasp onto this and lead the way. So let's talk about where they are, shall we?
Yes, let's do it.
Where they are. Yay. Number 1 country in the past 7 days, or at least in our top 3. Usually United States is number 1 in full disclosure, because that's where we are.
Because that's where we live.
And we're English speaking and all that. Yeah. But again, top 3 in the past 7 days, Egypt.
I know. Hi, Egypt.
How cool is that?
So cool.
So very cool. Hello, those of you in Egypt. Get more of your friends and colleagues to listen. Yeah. And within the United States, the state that was number 1 in the past 7 days, Texas.
Hi, Texas.
Yes, Texas. Particularly, I know, particularly San Antonio.
Oh, hi, guys.
Right. I've been to Austin. I've been to Dallas. I don't think I've been to San Antonio, but now I feel like compelled to San Antonio. Thank you for supporting this podcast, folks. Yeah. We have been shouting out on several episodes now. I really enjoy doing it, and I want to keep doing it. And
it's become my favorite part almost.
I know.
I get so excited.
If you want where you are to be shouted out, folks, guess what? You got to get people to listen, because we have those stats coming in every day. We are still at this point, years later, where there actually is not one day that has gone by in the years we've done this podcast that people have not been listening. Yeah. So wonderful, so very flattering, and we appreciate all of you.
Yeah, we love you, peeps.
Feel free to check the website for resources about this and to contact us about it. We love to hear from you.
Yeah.
We haven't done a feedback 5 in a long time. We really should eventually.
Yeah, we should. That'd be nice.
Yeah. So contact us. Let us know what you think.
Yeah.
And we will catch you next time on the podcast.
All right. Bye, peeps.